Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Trivium, In the Court of the Dragon, out October 8th on Roadrunner Records. This album has 10 tracks, 52 minutes in length, and this is the band's 10th full-length studio album. They are an American heavy metal band. Now, this is a record of themes. I really felt that listening to it, there's several different themes that you can see throughout this album. Perhaps the two that become a little bit more noticeable is the one within the lyrical content and the one within the overall structure of the album. This is an album that definitely has peaks and valleys, that doesn't stay stagnant, that doesn't stay linear from beginning to end. The key element for this structure and how well it works is that they created some pillars and they separated those pillars throughout the experience of the record, and then in between them they put songs that had a little bit more of a familiar DNA, a little bit more of a familiar sound that allows the listener to feel a little bit more connected and enjoy those changes, enjoy those nuances a lot better and a lot easier because of everything that came before and everything that comes after. So it's a very well designed, a very well structured record that really enhances the playability of the songs and the playability and fluidity that the album has within its walls. Once you move into the soundscape, this is a heavy record. There's no way you can walk away from this album feeling otherwise. You see the heaviness in the volume of the sound, and you also see the heaviness in the vocals and the range that you're going to get throughout this record. So there's a lot of heaviness to go all around. Now, this heaviness does not muddy the waters. It doesn't hurt the definition of the soundscape of the album. You can hear the guitars, you can hear the drums, the bass, the vocals. You can feel what everything is doing and where they're going within each and every single song. But at the same time, once you bring them all together to the table, the song grows, the song becomes bigger, it becomes alive, but you're always able to listen to the track, feel the combination of elements and what do they have to offer, and at the same time break them down and enjoy each and every single one of them. So this is a strength that I saw in the previous record becoming a little bit better defined within this album. I really felt that this was one of the strong points of the album, is always giving you this strong volume, this heaviness, but not letting that get in the way of the better definition, creating the boundaries within each track so that you can really break it down and feel like every single element had something to offer. Now, within that soundscape, let me talk a little bit about everything: bass, drums, guitars, and vocals. First of all, I want to say that I really enjoy the bass on this record. It's not always in the forefront, but they definitely did not hide it in the mix. It has a role, it plays a very important role of adding some grooviness, but also helping create that definition of sound. And that's the other part coming from the drums, that I really felt that drums and bass always had that role of creating some sort of a baseline, a foundation for this album, creating some grooviness at times, perhaps more so from the bass, but both of them really help define the parameters of the album, define the parameters of the songs themselves, and creating perhaps a little bit of a box in which the songs then flourish within. Those two elements have a lot of similarities and they really work well in conjunction with one another. But I love the sound of the bass and I love the sound of the drums. The drums, sometimes if you're listening to this album with quality headphones, you can hear the movement from one cymbal to another, jumping from one ear to the other. I really enjoy that. Really technical aspect of the sound, really well mixed, really well recorded, put together, really enhancing the experience for the listener. If you're more into an audiophile and you really want to get into the breakdown of how the sound is constructed on this album, you really feel that they went perhaps where they hadn't really gone before, at least not with this much detail. Then you have the guitars, the motor of this record. If there are nuances within this album, if there are a little bit of variety of flavor, a variety of sound, a lot of that is due to the guitar sound and how it was recorded and how it was executed. You're going to hear some thrash elements, you're going to see some black metal elements, you're going to see a lot of prog elements on this record, and then obviously you're going to have that core DNA sound of Trivium coming together, blending everything as one. So the guitars really are the salt and pepper of this album in terms of adding flavor or reducing a little bit of flavor depending on where you are within the record, and obviously depending on where you are within each and every single song. On top of this, you have the vocals. Matt Heafy on this album really has a strong range, but I felt like it tipped a little bit more towards the heavier, screamier side of his voice. We didn't get as much melody or more melodic stretches out of him on this record. The intensity that we see in the sound, the aggression that we see in the sound is definitely duplicated by him on the vocals, and that stays very consistent throughout the record. But like I said, you're going to get a little bit of everything. The range is nice. You're really going to get a lot from him throughout the experience of listening to this record. But if you have to look at which side of his range this album ends up on. It definitely ends on the more aggressive, the more intense side that he has to offer. Overall, this is an interesting album, but it's an album that kind of left me a little bit, I don't know, it didn't impress me. When I look at the two previous records, and I hate comparing albums because I feel like each record deserves its own attention on its own and not necessarily look back in terms of what was done before. But when you look back at the two previous records, the moment that I heard them, I felt so connected to those albums. The songs were hooky, the songs were catchy, there was a lot of melody, there was heaviness, there was a little bit of a blend of those two worlds. The songs just felt more natural, they felt more organic. On this album, everything feels a little bit more sterile. It feels a little bit more programmed, and I'm not saying that things were programmed in, but it feels like this record took a little bit more time to be constructed, and they spent a little bit more time fine-tuning every single detail of the record, and therefore they took a little bit of that organic vibe that I felt was missing on this album. It was a little bit bland to me at times. It was technical, sure. Did it sound great? Outstanding. The sound is amazing. Are the vocals top-notch? Of course they are. Everything is perfect on this album, but sometimes too much of something that is perfect becomes a little bit boring, and that's exactly how this album feels to me. It's too perfect for me. I wanted a little bit of imperfection. I wanted a little bit more of an organic vibe on some of these songs and not feel like the album is super controlled. As far as favorite songs goes, I want to start off with A Crisis of Revelation. Great groovy chunky riff that this track has. The verses have volume, they have aggression, they have intensity, and you see that both musically and vocally. This song really packs a punch as far as the verses goes. Once you get into the chorus changes, becomes a little bit more melodic, and you see that musically once again and vocally. It just has a little bit more air, it sounds a little bit lighter, it has a little bit more of a thinner definition to it, if you will. The song really speeds up in the verses. It really feels like it has great momentum. It has a great tempo in the verses, and then the choruses are kind of like pumping the brakes. They slow down things a little bit. So it's a song that has peaks and valleys, and those peaks and those valleys are really different from one another. So you can really see the change, but the transitions are smooth. So that allows the song to be dynamic, and it allows the song to be interesting. It has a solo. The solo is heavy. It adds power to the overall song. It picks up a little bit, if you will, the two sides of what this song is all about, the heavier side and the more melodic side. I really feel like that those two elements were present, blended in into how the solo section of this track is put together. And then it closes off really strong. So it's a great track, really well constructed, ups and downs, peaks and valleys, ebbs and flows, very dynamic, a song that has that DNA Trivium sound, perhaps a little bit more once it got into the chorus, but how it transitions from the verses to the chorus is pure Trivium, smooth transitions. Next, you have No Way Back, Just Through. I really like this track. Great guitar sound. The clean vocals match the intensity that the track has musically without having to go really heavy or really hard. It's more about the delivery than it is about the tone. That's exactly how this track comes together as far as the sound, where it's taking you, and then what the vocals are doing. A very driven track. The bass adds a lot of groove. I really like the bass sound all around. I like the bass tone on this track. It really pops here and there, and every time that it pops, it just always brought a smile to my face because I really like the tone. I really like the life that it gives and the boundaries that it creates for the song. You start to see the shapes a little bit better just by adding that bass and allowing it to jump into the forefront. It helps make things a little bit more complete. The chorus is simple and direct, but yet not very hooky, not very catchy. That was something that surprised me. It was missing something. It was missing a little bit of energy, I felt. Overall, the song lives off of the guitar sound and how the guitars drive the experience and how dynamic they are, the changes that are happening, everything gravitates towards that, and that's where your attention goes. Last but not least, From Dawn to Decadence, aggression and intensity turn to 11. Best way to describe this song. It's just musically and vocally a song that never gives up. It has a lot of power, it has a lot of strength. At times it feels like it's coming a little bit off the rails, if you will, because it has just so much power, so much intensity, that's very hard to control it and keep it very defined. So you always feel like this is a track that's about to just completely jump off the tracks and you're not going to be able to hold on to it. It has that sort of dynamic movement from beginning all the way to the end. I also like the electronic side of things that they added to the vocals, making the vocals feel a little bit more robotic. That what it did to me on the song is it gave you a different side of what you can do vocally and change the dynamic of the song, change your perception of the track, increasing the footprint of the vocal range, and that's exactly what happened. They didn't overdo it. They came in at the right time, was part of the overall construction of the song, was part of the overall design. I enjoy it because it was different. It was something that I didn't see being repeated over and over again throughout the whole entire album. So the fact that it was given to me on this song, with the style that the track has, with the power that it has, with the intensity that it has, I felt like it was perfect. Worked really well within the track, within the construction of the song, and within the soundscape that the song has. This is it. This is Trivium in the Court of the Dragon, out October 8th on Roadrunner Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.